Hi all and welcome back to my channel, and today we are talking about my love affair with QWERTY keyboards. For context, for the longest time I absolutely adored having physical keyboards on my phone. My first smartphone was a Palm Trio Pro, and I followed that thing with a string of Palm Pre and Pixel models before finally moving to the BlackBerry Q10. The sliding devices like this Pre 3 over here especially gave you all of the advantages of having a large touchscreen phone, but with the added productivity and typing joy that a physical keyboard affords. Because of this, I personally find the general public's ambivalence to phones with QWERTY keyboards in this day and age to be simply both baffling and unfortunate. We are all just so used to physical keyboards on our laptops and desktops. In fact, we seem to love them so much that even when someone tries to take them away, we all complain about it non-stop and claim about how terrible a thing that is, even when a touch keyboard might actually be faster. Furthermore, we have millions of people fawning over the latest mechanical keyboards for desktops, even when they may cost hundreds or even thousands of dollars, which is just a ridiculous amount to pay for any computer peripheral. But somehow everybody seems to just be happy with using a touchscreen keyboard on their phones these days. So happy that there isn't even the choice to have a physical keyboard of any kind from the major brands. I've tried to express my love for the physical keyboard recently on a TikTok, and the reception was simply like hitting my head against a brick wall. I got multiple comments like, why would anybody need a physical keyboard when modern phones have something called haptic feedback, so you feel like that you're typing on a physical keyboard anyway? Are you guys for real? When Apple replaced just the function keys on the MacBook Pro with the touch strip, the outcry was so immense that they actually backpedaled on the entire idea with the very next revision. Although I do have to admit that I did actually quite enjoy using the touch bar, and apart from developers who even uses function keys anyway. Imagine the outcry if Apple's next step was to remove the physical keyboard entirely from their MacBooks. Some people might say that we tend to type less on a phone, but I disagree. I type far more on my phone than my laptop because it's the device that's with me all the time. I love writing scripts, sending long emails, and just messaging people on my phone. I just don't want to lug my laptop around to do those tasks. I remember reveling in the opportunity to send an email when I had the pleasure of using a keyboard on my phone. While they may not be faster than a touch keyboard these days, damn, a good physical keyboard just feels fantastic. It's a shame then that in today's zeitgeist that the physical keyboard on phones seems to be completely dead, and demand seems to have dried up as well. And that's why I'm pleased to say that Unihertz, a small Shanghai-based phone company, has come out with a new phone in the Titan line called the Titan Slim. Is it perfect? Definitely not. It is a deeply flawed device, but do I adore it? I absolutely do. For context, the Titan Slim has been around for about half a year now, and I've been using it as my second phone for the past month or so. Thank you Unihertz for sending me a sample for review. It costs around $330 USD and has pretty unremarkable specs. It's got a 768p display that, while it's quite small at 4.2 inches, it actually feels like a good size when you're using the phone, and it is IPS as well, so it's pretty good for viewing angles, and the colors are nice and colorful too. What I found quite interesting though is that the size is basically the same as one of my favorite phones of all time, the HP Pre 3 with the keyboard slid out. Just look at that. I would have thought that the size of this would have been completely ridiculous back in the day, but it's now somehow a reasonably sized phone, especially when compared to the smaller iPhone Pro, as you can see over here. Underneath the screen we have a fingerprint reader that works relatively well, and of course we have our fabulous keyboard. Now the keyboard is weird to say the least. It's in fact far from one of the best keyboards I've ever used. The layout, put simply, is quite perplexing. The function keys are on the top instead of on the bottom, which forces your thumbs to just type in weird ways. The spacebar is also nestled between the bottom letters, which is very odd. And the weight balance when you're typing is, just put simply, completely off. The top is just so heavy. Even after a week's worth of use, I still wasn't totally on board with the keyboard. But sometime very soon after that, it just somehow clicked. I just started to love typing on this thing. The keys just felt so satisfying to press, and I would just go out of my way to use it, whether it was simply to write a script, an email, or even just to perform a simple Google search. While it is far from the best keyboard phone in the world, as the only option right now, it's not bad at all. When I started using the phone, I knew that I would eventually grow to love the keyboard, no matter how weird it is. But what my biggest fear though was that the rest of the phone would be horrible. I've seen some reviews like Michael Fisher's, and honestly, it put me off the phone for the longest time. But after using it properly for a good while, it honestly feels pretty good. I mean, it's not as good as a Pixel 7 or Galaxy S23 Ultra, it's nowhere near as fast, but the performance more than keeps up with most tasks, and the battery life, due to the modest processor and a relatively small screen, literally lasts days. It's seriously that good. The build quality though, it isn't the best. It's a bit plasticky, and it actually, the hardware feels thicker than the Pre-3, which was a slide-out phone, which definitely is a little bit odd, especially when remembering the name. But the build quality does overall feel solid enough, and when you put a case on, it honestly feels fine. The camera too is better than what I expected. It's a 48 megapixel unit, which had me fearing the worst, especially in low light. But while it's definitely nowhere near as good as a modern flagship, it's more than good enough for casual use. One problem that I am a little bit concerned about though is that it still runs Android 11, being Android 13 being the norm now. While Unihertz has claimed that Android 12 may be arriving eventually, we might be left in a BlackBerry Key 2 type situation, where it's stuck with a dated operating system for far too long. But as the Key 2 is stuck on Android 8 right now, which means you can't really use it anymore, I'm more than happy just to accept Android 11 on this. What I do like is that Unihertz have added some BlackBerry style improvements, namely the touch-sensitive keyboard that you can just use to scroll and navigate around with. It isn't the most sensitive thing in the world, but when it works great, and it helps to keep your fingers off the screen while viewing content. There's also a notification light at the top, but honestly it feels a little bit too antiquated for my taste. The Palm Pre had a flashing light strip, which I prefer on the bottom, and in this day and age, an always on display is just far more useful than any flashing notification light could be. Okay, so in conclusion, has owning a physical keyboard phone made me a better person? I actually think that it might have, because I actively now want to respond to messages and emails faster. I definitely don't put them off for as long as I used to, and I do love being productive on this thing. While the Unihertz Titan Slim is far from perfect, since it is so affordable, even if you just have an inkling of an interest to try out a physical QWERTY phone again, I would highly recommend it. I honestly love this thing, and I absolutely do hope that they decide to make another one, because it really is that charming. And fingers crossed, if enough people take notice, other brands might realize that the QWERTY keyboard is quite a good thing, even in 2023. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and until next time, toodaloo.